Hey, hi and welcome back. So in previous video, we discussed the process to download and install the Arduino IDE software, and along with that, I gave you the brief introduction to Arduino IDE software. Okay, and in this video, I'm going to give you a brief introduction to USBASP programmer. So in this video, you will get to know what's basically USBASP programmer and what's the purpose of USBASP programmer. Okay, so in this video we will discuss every single thing about this programmer in detail. Alright, so now let's start with this video. So now let me tell you what you're going to learn in this video. So the first point is what is USBASP programmer and its purpose. So I will discuss what's basically a USBASP programmer, and also I will discuss the purpose of USBASP programmer. Okay. Then the next point is pin configuration of USBASP programmer. So we will see what's basically the pin configuration, what are the different pins which are available in this USBASP programmer. Okay. Then the next point is how to connect USBASP programmer to hardware. So again, I will explain you the interfacing between the microcontroller and the USBASP programmer, okay? Which means how we need to connect this programmer to our hardware. Then the last point is what software is used for programming. So again, I will show you what software we need to use in order to program the controller using USBASP programmer, okay? So that's how basically we are going to cover this video, and I am sure you will definitely enjoy this video. Okay, so now let's start with this video. So this is how basically the USBASP programmer look like, and on this USBASP programmer you can see there is actually a IC which is Atmega 8A, and in our hardware we are using Atmega 328 IC. Okay, and this particular IC actually belongs to the same family, which is Mega family. And the controller that we are using Atmega 328, it also belongs to the same family, which is Mega family. And this Mega family is actually manufactured by, this particular company, which is Atmel. So on top of this IC, you can see Atmel is written. So that's basically the manufacturer of this IC. So I will talk about the different families which are manufactured by this particular manufacturer in a moment. First of all, let's see this USBASP programmer. So on this USBASP programmer, this is basically the main CPU, which is Atmega 8. Then there is crystals, then some resistors are there, then some Zener diodes are there. Then again, here you can see there are some resistors, LEDs are there, and there are some headers here. Okay. And on right hand side, you can see this is basically the shrouded box connector. That's the name of this connector, shrouded box connector, and these pins are actually called as ICSP pins. Okay, so ICSP basically stands for in-circuit serial programming. So ICSP is basically the method to program the Atmel's controller. Okay, and we are going to use these pins to program the Atmega 328 microcontroller. Okay, then on the left hand side, this is basically the USB connector, and we need to connect this USB side to the computer, and by using some software we need to program the code in the microcontroller. Okay, so about that we will discuss in detail, but not in this particular video. So this is basically the USBASP programmer, and we need to use this USBASP programmer to program the code in the microcontroller. Okay, now let's discuss the pin configuration of this USBASP programmer. So you can see this is basically the pin configuration. These are the different pins which are available on the back side of this USBASP programmer. They have given the names of each and every pin. So these pins that you see, 1, 2, 3, these pins are not connected anywhere. And along with that, this particular pin NC is written. You can see it actually means not connected. So MOSI, reset, SCK, MISO, and ground. These are the only pins we need to use, to program the code in the microcontroller. Okay. So I will discuss about this in more detail when I will discuss the interconnection between USBASP programmer and controller. So at this moment, just remember that these are basically the pins of this USBASP programmer, and using these pins, we need to program the code in the microcontroller. So I will just tell you the full form of all these pins. The first pin is MOSI, which stands for Master Out Slave In. So that's basically the name of this pin. And then the next pin is reset pin. RST stands for reset. Then SCK stands for serial clock. Then MISO stands for master in serial out. And then the last pin is ground pin. And we don't use, this particular pin, which is VCC pin, to program the code in the microcontroller, because we are not powering the system or hardware using USBASP programmer. We are powering our system by using, the 7805 power supply IC. So we don't need to connect this particular pin to the hardware. So MOSI, reset, clock, SCK, serial clock, MISO and ground, these are basically the pins of USBASP programmer, and using these pins only we need to program the code in the microcontroller. Okay. After that, you can see here, this is basically this is actually called as FRC cable, flat ribbon cable, and this part will be inserted in this shrouded box connector, and this part will be inserted in the shrouded box connector, which will be there on the hardware that you have to program. But in our case, we haven't used this type of shrouded box connector. Instead of that, we have just provided the header. So we are going to connect each and every pin or individual pins using female to female jumper wire. Okay. So we are not going to use this FRC cable. We are going to use female to female jumper wire. If you don't know what's female to female jumper wire, then you don't need to bother about it, because when I will show you the practical demonstration, at that time you will get to know what's basically female to female jumper wire. Okay. So that's the USB-ASP programmer. Now you can see here on right hand side, these are basically the controllers which we can program using this USB-ASP programmer. So this programmer is capable to program these all controllers, and you can see these all controllers are actually manufactured by this company about which I talked just now, which is Atmel. So that's basically the manufacturer. But the point is, now Atmel is acquired by Microchip. So Microchip is actually the owner of all these controllers. Okay. Then this Atmel's microcontroller portfolio is actually divided in different series. So you can see Mega series, then Tiny series, Classic series, and CAN series, and PWN series. But we are not interested in all this series. We are just interested in Mega series. So these are different controllers which are available in Mega series. So you can see Atmega 8 is there, and this is basically the Atmega 328 which we are using in our design. Okay. So it means that we can use this particular programmer to program the code in our Atmega 328 microcontroller. Alright, so I hope that now every single thing that we discussed is now clear to you. Now let's go ahead. So now let me tell you the interconnection between the USB-ASP programmer and our hardware. So this is basically the header which is there on our hardware, and you already know the pin configuration of this header. So this MOSI pin will be connected to MOSI pin on this header, which is basically the pin number 2 of this header. Then reset pin will be connected to this reset pin. But one thing that you have to keep in your mind is this reset pin is actually going through this capacitor. So whenever you program the code in this microcontroller using USB-ASP programmer, at that time you have to remove this 0.1 microfarad capacitor. And instead of that, you can actually include a 0 ohm resistor, or if you don't have a 0 ohm resistor, then straight away you can short the pads of this capacitor. Okay. So just remove the capacitor and short the 2 pads of the capacitor using soldering wire. Okay. So remember that this reset pin of this USB-ASP should be directly connected to this particular point. Otherwise, the code will not be programmed in this microcontroller. So MOSI will be connected here, then reset will be connected at this point, SCK, serial clock, will be connected to this pin number 4, SCK, and then MISO, master in slave out, will be connected to this particular pin. And ground is going to be the reference point, so this pin should be connected here, which is pin number 8. And we have already discussed that VCC pin will not be connected anywhere. So that's how basically the connection is going to be when you have to program the code in this microcontroller using USB-ASP programmer. And I hope that now this particular point is clear. Now let's go ahead. So this is basically the software that we need to use in order to program the code in the microcontroller. So this side of this USB ASP programmer will be connected to the USB port of PC. Then these pins will be connected to the microcontroller. And in this situation, you have to open this particular software. So this is basically a free software, AVR Dudes. And using this software, you need to program the code in the microcontroller. So you can see here from this drop down menu, you can select the controller that you are using. And then later from this drop down menu, you have to select the programmer that you are using. In our case, it's going to be USB ASP. And after that, you have to select the code, the firmware file. It's going to have the hex format, or it can also have the binary format. You need to select the firmware file that you have to program in the microcontroller. Okay. And then you have to click on this particular button, which is program. And then this software is going to program the code in the microcontroller using this USB ASP programmer. Okay. So that's basically the process to program the code in the microcontroller using USB ASP programmer. Okay. So I hope that this particular point is clear to you, and every single thing that we discussed regarding the USB ASP is now clear to you. And if you still have any kind of doubt, even if you have a small doubt, then definitely you can ask me. Do not hesitate to ask any question. I will help you with all your questions. Okay. Alright, so now I will see you in the next video, which is about introduction to USB to UART converter. So I will see you in the next video now.